Okay, so here's why I think high intensity training is better than high volume training. Now, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've tried both high volume training and high intensity training. If you don't know what that means, high volume is basically doing 10 to 20 sets per week, doing tons of sets, tons of volume, right? And training close to failure, right? So training 1 to 2 reps in reserve, and high intensity training is just doing 1 to 2 sets per exercise, but doing it all the way to failure or even beyond failure, right? So that's the two, camps that we always see in the fitness industry: high volume and high intensity. But I've tried both. High volume training, it works, but it will make you, it at least it made me overtrained. It made me anxious. It made me actually like depressed that I couldn't eat and I had like terrible sleep. It made me severely overtrained. High intensity training, however, I built the most muscle I've ever built in my life with high intensity training. Honestly, right? So yeah, based on my personal experience, high intensity training is better for me. But you shouldn't judge, what you should do on one person's experience. So I'm gonna break it down on every level. Why I think high intensity training is better than high volume training. If we look at the first principles of maximizing muscle strength, there are really 3 things. And I'm strictly talking in terms of training, right? Of course, nutrition and sleep are very important, but if we're talking just training, high volume versus high intensity training, all it comes down to is we need motor unit recruitment, mechanical tension, and progressive overload. You're like, I don't know what any of that means. You will. Motor unit recruitment, I'm going to try to explain this as simply as possible, is basically your muscles are made of small strands, small strings called fibers, and every group of fibers is connected to something called motor units. Now, there are small motor units that are connected to a small group of fibers, and there are very large motor units that are connected to large, fast twitch muscle fibers, which are the ones that grow the most muscle, right? And there is a scale, basically, and this is what Elwood Henneman discovered in the 1950s, the Henneman size principle, which is one of the core principles of maximizing muscle strength, which is the low threshold. Basically, the more effort you put in, the more effort the muscle exerts, the closer you train to failure, the more motor units you recruit. Basically, when we don't train to failure at all, right? If you're walking, right, like very low intensity, you recruit low threshold motor units, very small motor units, right? But as the intensity increases and the closer we get to failure, the larger and the more motor units we recruit, basically the more muscles we recruit, the more muscle fibers we recruit in an exercise. And this is very, very important if we want to maximize muscle and strength, is we need to recruit all of the muscle. Of course we do, because if we recruit all the muscle, we build all of the muscle, right? And that's why training to failure is fundamental, because when you train to failure, you maximize motor unit recruitment. You recruit all of the motor units, from the small low threshold motor units to the large high threshold motor units that are connected to fast twitch muscle fibers, which build the most muscle. You maximize motor unit recruitment through training to failure. So that's the first thing. The second thing is mechanical tension, and this was discovered by Brad Schoenfeld in 2011. And I'll explain this very simply, right? Just to change the setup a bit. But mechanical tension, right? So mechanical tension, basically for all the time, until 2011, we believe there were 3 drivers for muscle growth. That basically 3 things that built muscle, that were the cause for building muscle. And we believe that we needed to maximize like all 3. They were metabolic stress, mechanical tension, and muscle damage. Metabolic stress is basically like the burning feeling you feel when you do an exercise, like when you do leg extensions like very fast, you feel like that burning sensation, like that acid, burning sensation. It feels like burning in your muscles. That's basically metabolic stress. That's basically lactic acid in your muscle being pumped through your muscle, like tons of lactic acid. And we believed that that was one of the main drivers of muscle growth. Not until 2011, all right? Now, the other driver is muscle damage. And this is basically small micro tears in the muscle when we exercise that then when we eat, when we sleep, there are very small microscopic tears. They get sealed and make the muscle a little bit bigger. We believe that, right? And that is basically caused like by soreness, right? When you get really sore, all right? But that really, like those two are not the main drivers. We discovered that. Mechanical tension is. And mechanical tension is the force your muscles produce under load. So if you imagine like doing like a incline bench press, for example, incline dumbbell press, you're going like very, very deep and you're controlling the eccentric and your muscle is pushing under load, under tension, right? That's why it's called mechanical tension. That is how you maximize mechanical tension, and that is the primary driver of muscle growth. Brad Schoenfeld discovered in 2011 that mechanical tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. Metabolic stress and muscle damage have nothing to do, or have little to nothing to do with maximizing muscle strength. And this actually makes complete sense. Like, if we think about it, like, metabolic stress is not the driver of muscle growth. If it were, then, for example, endurance runners who build tons of lactic acid because they run so much, right, or like very, very high rep workouts would be the most jacked people on earth, right? But of course that's not the case. And muscle damage, of course that's not it. Like, you can do jumping jacks, you can do like 500 jumping jacks and be incredibly sore and do tons of muscle damage in your muscles, but it won't build any muscle. Of course we don't. Of course it won't, because there isn't enough tension. But what will actually build muscle is mechanical tension, and this makes complete sense. Like, you can go into the gym and literally do one set all the way to failure with heavy loads, you know, going down, controlling the eccentric, getting that deep stretch, maximizing mechanical tension as much as possible. And that will maximize mechanical tension, maximize more unit recruitment, and of course maximize muscle growth and strength. But you could go into the gym, and if volume, right, if volume was the primary driver of muscle growth, like all these science-based guys and all these influencers say, then you can go into the gym and do 100 sets of bench press and do 50 reps every set. Like, so much volume, right? Tons of volume. But if you do it with those pink dumbbells, those very light dumbbells, and you're training like 10 RIR, like nowhere near failure, you won't build any muscle, because there is barely any tension. Yes, there is tons of muscle damage, there's tons of metabolic stress, but that will not build any muscle, because mechanical tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. And mechanical tension is maximized through, again, training to failure, using heavy weights, controlling the eccentric, doing that deep stretch, right? So yeah, motor unit recruitment maximized through training to failure. Mechanical tension, the primary driver of muscle growth, maximized through training to failure. And the third thing, which is progressive overload. And progressive overload is basically how we continue to build muscle. We continue to keep building muscle. So when you do one set all out to failure, let's say, for example, of bench press, for example, you do it for like 40 kilos. 40 kilos bench press, one set all the way to failure. You maximized motor unit recruitment. You recruited all of the motor units. You recruited the largest, highest threshold fast twitch muscle fibers, which are the most prone to building muscle, basically. And at the same time, you maximize mechanical tension because you trained with heavy weights. Now, you did that. What happened to you, you know, physiologically, right, in your body is your body activated muscle protein synthesis through the mTOR pathway. Basically, the body says to itself, okay, now that we have built all of this tension, this insane stimulus, we have like the maximum stimulus, we are going to build muscle. Basically, your muscles get a little bit thicker in cross-sectional area, right? So when you go into the gym the next time, you did 40 kilos for 5 reps. You're gonna do it this time for 7 reps. So you're gonna train to failure again, but you're gonna do it for 7 reps this time. That way you're constantly building muscle from week to week. All right. So those are the three first principles of maximizing muscle growth, maximizing hypertrophy: motor unit recruitment, mechanical tension, and progressive overload. All right. Now the thing is, for all the time, like since weightlifting was invented, we always believed high volume was better, because we believed that muscle damage and metabolic stress were as important as mechanical tension. They were the 3 drivers of muscle growth. We believed that, right? In the Arnold days, of course, in like Tom Platz, right? The Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler in the 90s, we believed that in those days. But the science says that is not true. And that's why we trained with high volume, because we believe that soreness, we believe that lactic acid buildup, those things were the causes of building muscle. But it turns out they were not at all. Mechanical tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. Muscle damage and metabolic stress have nothing to do with it. And that explains, like, we see this all the time in runners. Like, endurance athletes produce tons of muscle damage, they get incredibly sore, and they produce tons of metabolic stress, they build tons of lactic acid. But if you look at endurance athletes, right? Endurance athletes are always, very skinny, very thin, right? Because that's the body that helps them with endurance, right? If muscle damage and metabolic stress were the primary drivers, they would be jacked. But if we look, for example, at sprinters, right, who like run very, very fast, all the way to failure, like very high intensity, sprinters are absolutely jacked. Like if you Google sprinters' legs especially, their legs are jacked. Their legs are jacked because they're maximizing mechanical tension. They're maximizing the stimulus to their muscles. Yes, it's not with weightlifting and all that, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept, right? So basically, all maximizing hypertrophy comes down to is train to failure to maximize mechanical tension and motor unit recruitment, and maximize progressive overload. So every time you go into the gym, increase the reps or the weight. That's all it comes down to. Volume doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. Like, we have this stupid idea always of, more is better, but it's not at all, especially when it comes down to maximizing muscle growth. It has nothing to do with it. More is not better. Better is better. Stimulus is better. Mechanical tension is better. Training to failure is better. Now, I know so many people will say, no, but the research shows that volume is better, that more sets are better, right? Doing more sets. Yes, more sets are better in those studies because these studies are not to failure. If you don't train to failure, if you're doing reps in reserve, which I believe honestly is just completely useless, but if we're training with reps in reserve, doing 1, 2, 3 reps in reserve before failure, of course multiple sets are better, because you're stopping short of the largest motor units. You're stopping short of mechanical tension, right? You're leaving out the most important reps. Like, yes, you will build some muscle because you're doing some intensity. You are doing some mechanical tension, some motor unit recruitment, but it's not optimal. It's not optimal at all, and it's very insufficient. So people compensate with that and do 2 sets and 3 sets and 4 sets. So of course it's going to be better because, a little bit better is better, of course. But why not do Why do like 3, 4, 5 sets not to failure when you can just do all that in one set to failure, maximizing motor unit recruitment and maximizing mechanical tension, right? Like, it never made sense to me. And the thing is, like, if you do 3 sets with RIR, first of all, how do you know that you're training close enough to failure? Like, there is no way, there is no radar to know, oh, I have 2 reps in reserve, oh, I have 1 rep in reserve. There is no way to know that. It's like, you can't know that. There's no specific radar to tell. At the same time, people are very bad at knowing how close they are to training to failure, how close they are training to failure, right? That's one thing. And the other thing, if you're doing 3 sets with 1 to 2 reps in reserve and you're not building enough muscle, what do? Do you go to 4 sets? Or do you go to 2 sets and increase the intensity? What do you do? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, man. Like, I think high volume workouts are just, they just don't make any sense, right? Like, I know so many people come at me, but all the research shows that volume is better, that frequency even is way better. Yes, it is better if you're not training to failure. That's the point. If you're not recruiting enough motor units, if you're not doing enough mechanical tension, of course more sets and more frequency is better. But if you are, there is no need for it. There is no need for it at all. And it totally depends on your recovery ability. So I would say the best way to train, in my opinion, is high intensity training. So doing 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 workouts per week, but doing just 1 set per exercise all the way to failure. That maximizes mechanical tension and maximizes motor unit recruitment, and every week focusing on increasing either the reps or the weight. And I promise you, once I did this, like I work out 3 times per week, push-pull leg split. Every single workout I get stronger, bro. Every single workout, I'm telling you. I do either 2 reps extra or increase the weight. Every single workout, man. It's insane how strong I'm getting, and I'm building the most muscle I've ever built in my life because I'm doing high intensity training. And the thing with high intensity training is it totally depends on your genetics and your recovery ability. If you do, for example, 1 set to failure, and most people will say, oh no, I can't do any more. For me personally, I can't do any more than 1 set. But if you feel like you can do another set, do it. Do 2 sets. So if you do 1 set all the way to failure and you feel like you can do another set, do another set all the way to failure. That way you maximize more unit recruitment and you maximize mechanical tension completely. It accounts completely for your genetic ability, your recovery, right? But this nonsense of high volume training, oh, you have to do more sets, you have to at least do 10 sets. Like, who says that? Who says that that's, like, there's nothing that says, oh, if you do less than 10 sets, you will build less muscle if you are training to failure. Like, there are no studies comparing doing 1 set all the way to failure versus 3 to 4 sets with reps in reserve. Like, there's nothing that compares those 2 things. Or at least, like, no study that I have seen personally. If there is a study, please someone comment it down below and I'll check it out. Maybe I'll change my mind. But even then, like, probably the result will be like no difference. And if that's the case, if the case is 1 set to failure versus 3 sets not to failure, 1 set, there is no difference, then of course high intensity training is gonna be way better because it saves way more time. It does way more less wear and tear on your joints, and it prevents you from overtraining. We know from research by Brad Schoenfeld that excessive volume is the leading cause of overtraining and injuries, by the way. Like, if we keep putting stress on our joints, if we keep increasing volume on our joints, yes, our muscles will adapt, but our joints and tendons are way slower at adapting, especially if the weight is heavy. If you're doing a lot of volume, then of course you will get injured. So I just think high volume training is very overrated. It's very overrated, and high intensity training is just way better in my opinion and in my personal experience, right? This is not to say that high volume training doesn't work. It does work. It does work, but high intensity training is way more optimal, and it works way better, and it will build you way more muscle, and you will get way stronger when you do it. And at the same time, it's rooted in the first principles of maximizing muscle and strength. And let's be honest, bro, like the number one reason 90% of people never build any muscle is because they're not training hard enough at all. It's because they're not training hard enough. It's never because they're not doing enough volume. It's always because they're not training hard enough. Because mechanical tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. And mechanical tension is maximized through training to failure. And if you don't put enough effort, we will not recruit enough motor units, and you will not maximize mechanical tension. That's all it comes down to. And that's actually one of the reasons I stopped going to the gym, is because people in the gym train like pansies, man. Like, I remember one time, and this happened multiple times, like so many times I'll be in the gym, and I'm doing like my set, and I'm doing like my failure set, like doing it all the way to failure. I'm doing like an incline bench press, and I'm doing it, I'm pushing, I'm grunting, I'm making like weird faces, and someone will see me and tell me, no, stop, don't, like that's enough, you can't do any more. But I feel like I have 2 more in me, and I want to train to failure. Like, the thing is, we are so bad at knowing how close we are to failure. So, like, you might think that we train that like 2 reps in reserve, or even 1 rep in reserve, while we're just training 3 to 4 reps in reserve. And if that happens, then everything goes wrong. So yeah, it's just, intensity is the primary driver. Mechanical tension is the primary driver. Training to failure is not volume. Not volume. Like, please, bro, please understand this. Because I wasted so much time doing this. I wasted so much time training with high volume. Training with multiple sets. I used to train like push-pull like 6 days a week. And I just got overtrained. I was depressed. I couldn't train for 6 months, literally. I had to take 6 months off to recover, and that's actually when I learned all these things, and that's when I discovered high intensity training, and now I'm building the most muscle I've ever built in my life, and I'm the strongest I've ever been in my life. I'm actually testing something. I'm testing to see if we can make high intensity training twice per week. If we make the frequency twice per week, basically I'm doing like a upper lower split, training every muscle twice per week, but it's 1 set only. So I'll see how that works, and I'll update you, bro. But yeah, I think high intensity training is significantly better than high volume training. Like, even apart from like the science that it's better, and the physiology and the biology and all these things in the first principles, apart from all that, the workouts are 30 or 40 minutes, way less time in the gym, way more time to improve yourself, actually, way more time to meditate, to journal, to read, to create content, to build a business, to have relationships, to talk to people, way more time. Less wear and tear on your joints, so less stress on your joints, more recovery. What else do you need? Like, I just think high intensity training is way better for me personally. Of course. If high volume training works better for you, amazing. Keep doing it. Take my blessing. But for me personally, I think high intensity training is better. So yeah, that's what I think. I think high intensity training is the best way to train, in my opinion. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and as always, we're in this together, and we will make it.